Welcome back to another special episode of Behind the Game. I'm still your host, Grace Mott, and I'm joined today by our one and only Jesse Balser. If you didn't know Jesse, he is our athletic director and was originally here as the men's basketball coach. As a coach, he took his team to the postseason for the first time in the college's history. As a result of all his coaching success, Balser was named the Philadelphia Area Small Coaches Association Coach of the Year. The following year, he was named the Northeastern Athletic Conference Coach of the Year. In his school years, Balser attended Philadelphia Textile, now known as Jefferson, for his bachelor's degree. He was on the 1992 basketball team that went on to the NCAA Elite Eight and was the first walk-on to be named team captain in Ram history. He was also a 4-year starter on the baseball team where he earned all ECAC honors and was named co-most valuable player of the team. Welcome, Coach Balser.
Thank you. I didn't realize I did all that. Thanks.
So, like I said, you first came here as the men's basketball team coach. What was that experience like, and what was the transition from coach to now athletic director like?
Yeah, that was an amazing experience for me when I became the head coach here, and it was really cool because at the time I was coaching at Jefferson, and it was called Philadelphia University at the time, and I was considering going into high school coaching, and I got a phone call that Chestnut Hill College was going co-ed, and they were starting men's basketball, and so I said, you know what, let me go for that job, and if I get it, I'll take it, and if I don't, then I'll continue with the high school aspiration, and I got the job, and here I am 20 years later, and I think the best part about it was being able to build the program, and so like starting the program, there's no preconceived notions about how things are going to go. I kind of got to mold it the way I wanted to. I got to recruit some really good young kids at the time. They played really well, which, you know, the players are what's going to make you successful, and got us going in the right direction. And I remember at the time just wanting to make sure we built a program that we were proud of. And then when people thought of Chestnut Hill College, they would think of me and my coaching staff and our teams. So that was really amazing. And then, you know, I was here for 2003 to 2018, so 15 years before I became the athletic director, and there was a lot of learning going on along the way. And but the transition was pretty good because when I did decide to finally become the athletic director, the thing that I was worried about most was just missing, like, putting teams together and coaching kids and like teaching them how to work together and how to communicate and everything. But I have found a lot of the same kind of thing with being an athletic director, because I really try to like coach coaches now, and I can use all my experiences because I've won some big games and I've lost some big games, and I've been on teams where we've gotten crushed, and then we've also done really well. So I think that I have a lot of information that I can share with our coaches now, and maybe help them teach them some things that sometimes as coaches you don't realize you're doing. And so like that's like a big thing for me is I like to come out to the games and watch, and I just try to be a resource for our coaches. And then also at the same time, I try to get to know all the student athletes as well, because like my favorite part about coaching was just being on a team and like building the relationships.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you do a great job of that.
Oh, thanks.
Like you said, you come to a lot of our games and matches and everything, but you also grew up as an athlete yourself. Do you still get those same emotions of like anxiety or happiness while you're at those games?
Yes and no. I was a terrible sport. I was a really like, I was like, I had an attitude problem. I really was competitive and didn't like to lose. So when I did, I was I was explosive sometimes, of just being like mad if we didn't play well. And I've grown a lot. So, I mean, as a coach, before I stopped coaching, I felt like I had gotten really bad, and like it was hard for me to like manage my emotions. But then I got a lot better at that. So like, to answer your question now, no, when I come out and watch everybody play, I really want Chestnut Hill to win, and I love watching us compete, but I'm really a lot more excited to watch like the way our teams develop. And we've had some teams that didn't win a lot of games, but I really enjoy watching them play because they're out here working their tails off, working together, not talking back to the coaches. So, I mean, that stuff all comes into it. But like as a player, I wasn't so nice. I really had a bad attitude the more when I look back at it. But I think like when I talk to the kids, when I see student athletes that are like, you know, not representing us the way I want them to, and I try to like have talks with them, it's always like the conversations are always coming from a place of experience and not a place of judgment, because we all go through things. We all get angry and upset about certain things, and that's okay. It's just a matter of like learning about it and trying to get better.
Yeah, competitiveness is like in our nature. So sometimes it is hard to like contain those emotions sometimes.
So why play if you're not trying to win?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I want to go back to coaching. So you also, along with coaching men's basketball, you coached golf here for 5 years. You also 3 years ago stepped up as the women's softball coach, and 2 years ago stepped up as the women's lacrosse coach. What was that like, since some of those sports you never played or coached before, and like how'd you get through that?
Wow, that's a great question, Grace. So the golf when I coached the golf team, it was because it was like I had just started being here on campus. The first 4 years I was coaching, I was part-time.
Okay.
When I became full-time, I think it was like the week I started, the golf coach who I had known because he was a basketball ref stepped down. So the athletic director, Bill Stiles, at the time was like, hey, can you coach golf? And I play golf, and I know what I'm talking about, so I was like, sure.
Yeah.
As it turned out, it was more of like I was a chauffeur. I drove them to the course. I would drive around with them. I might talk to them a little bit, but like, to be honest, some of the golfers were way better than I ever was. So it really was more of a job of like getting the team together, making sure they got where they needed to be, talking to them about competing and grinding out scores and stuff. But that was that. Basketball was amazing. When I coached the softball team, it kind of came out of nowhere. And I did play baseball in college, and I played baseball my whole life, and I love baseball. So while softball is a different game, it's a lot of the same concepts. You know, making sure you're giving 3 outs, and like at the end of the day, at the time that I took over that softball team, there was a lot of stuff going on within the team that I found a lot of excitement in trying to like help them through that, and I think they did a great job. We won some games, but even though we won some games, but even though we didn't make it to the playoffs or the championship, I think the girls learned a lot about themselves. I learned a lot about like them as well, and it was really fun. I could definitely see myself coaching softball, like, because it's just I really like enjoy the whole dynamic of baseball and softball.
Yeah. It's a lot about perspectives too, like seeing somebody else's perspective on something could be totally different and change your mindset. So I feel like going to a different sport, like yes, you played baseball, but softball is different, could also help like you build yourself too.
Exactly. And so with lacrosse, my oldest daughter, Isabella, played lacrosse her whole life. And so I always watched it. I learned the rules. And I'd always been like the person that would say, like, if you know how to coach and you know the fundamentals of a sport, you really can coach anything. It's not that true, but it's a little true. But so I knew all the fundamentals of lacrosse, and I had watched so many games, and I know how to coach. So I thought I would take the women's lacrosse team and try to do with them what we did with the softball team. And it worked in a sense that I hope the girls had a good experience. It got to a certain point where I realized that I didn't know as much as I thought I did. So, you can only go so far with just the fundamentals. But I did have some good assistant coaches at the time that helped me with setting up plays and things of that nature in women's lacrosse. But again, the best part about it was like getting to know some kids, like kids on the team that I had known but never really talked to, kids on the team that were quiet when we got there. And then by the time we were done, they talk a lot now. And so those little victories like that are why I love coaching. And so, I don't know how great of a coach I was in terms of like winning and losing, but I think the goal at this level, really, like, we always want to win, but I think it's really important to teach, like, learning how to get through adversity, learning how to talk to each other, learning how to respect each other. Because I think everything that happens on the field and in the courts, that all transfers into life when you get out of college. And so, like, right now is a great way to learn, and that's why all of our athletes and athletes all around the country get jobs, because companies know that the student athletes are really good at managing their time, learning how to communicate, working in a team, getting through tough times. So
that's one question I asked every student athlete this year is, what's it like to you being a student athlete? Because it's different for everybody.
Yeah.
But at the bottom of it, it's you're a student first and the athletics come, but you learn that balance.
Exactly.
Now, we both recently went on a trip together. Yes. We went to the NCAA Impact Forum in Indianapolis. What did you take away from that trip?
I took away so much, and I actually learned a lot before we even went. So when the five of us met and talked about, things that this college needs to make it a better place for everybody, because that was the whole goal of the forum, was to make your college space a more welcoming place for everybody.
Yeah.
And it's something that we've talked about in the past, and I think a lot of people talk about it, but hearing from the student athletes about the spaces on campus that the student athletes dominate because we're here. There's so many of us, and there's only so many spots. And the feelings that it could give some people, like, of anxiety. I mean, we have student athletes who feel anxious walking in around all the student athletes. So obviously when there's a non-student athlete coming through, I imagine they feel the same way at times. And I think that what we want to try to do is make everybody feel welcome to come in and sit and rest and do homework or have some coffee from Starbucks or whatever it is they like to do, and they shouldn't feel uncomfortable. And so I thought the goal of that was, like, by the time we left, we had all spoken about kind of places that we could enhance to make it a better experience to come here. And then while we were there, talking about how we can put this plan into fruition and get it all set up. It's going to take some time, but I loved getting to know you a little better. I love getting to know Kira and Oscar and Sebastian. I think the four of you guys were a great example of student athletes to attend that. Everybody was engaged, and the other thing that I think that we learned was that everybody is in the same boat. Like, I thought it was great the way so many different schools. There was probably 35, 40 colleges that attended with their student athletes and administrators, and out of those 40, probably 35 of them all talked about the student athlete, non-student athlete relationship, and it's really important. And it's not just unique to Chestnut Hill College. It's schools that have 6,000 kids, it's schools that have 1,000, and
schools from different states. Like, it's a universal thing.
Exactly. We're all going through the same thing. So it was cool to hear how they're going, what the things that they're going to do on their campuses. But I also got a lot of excitement out of, like, hearing what we could possibly do here.
Yeah, well, it was a great trip. I loved it.
Me too. It was great.
Thank you again for tuning in to another episode of Behind the Game. A huge thank you to my guest, our very own Jesse Boutzer. We appreciate everything you do and all your hard work.
Thanks so much, Grace.
Of course. Next week, we'll be taking a break, but join me the following week on the last episode before Christmas break. Tune in to see who will be featured.